If you want better efficiency and filtration for your 2019 or newer 5.3 liter Silverado 1500, this cold air induction's cold air intake in texture black is a great solution to consider for your build. This intake is good for the Silverado owner who's looking to get some more air and cleaner air into their intake with a well-built closed air box system and an oiled filter to provide optimal filtration and protection from heat soak and other outside elements, being especially great for wetter or hotter climates where you'd want the additional coverage. Now, with the protection and the higher flow filter, it's also a great mod to help your 5.3 liters efficiency, helping to boost performance, especially when pairing this with a tune or other modifications. I do want to note, however, that this is not carb compliant, so if you do live in an emission restrictive state, just keep that in mind when shopping around. Aside from the cool engine sounds that you're going to get from this intake, it does provide a lot of efficiency and much better flow and filtration compared to the factory system. Now that's thanks to the huge high flow filter here in the straight through style intake tube, streamlining air into the manifold and offering a more open media on the filter to get air in while the oil takes care of those smaller contaminants, filtering all of the harmful stuff out. Now with it being an oiled setup, this is also washable and reusable, so instead of replacing it every 1,000 miles or so, you can maintain clear air over time, and the red look offers a very sporty feel underneath the hood, especially with the clear sight window to keep an eye on the filter to maintain it over time. Now speaking of the housing, this is just another layer of protection here against any hot air inside the engine bay, keeping the intake air temperature down, creating denser air so you can get more into the intake while also keeping larger debris or even water out of that filter or away from the filter, considering that kind of stuff can sneak its way into the engine bay. Now breaking down this kit, starting with the airbox and the intake tube, those are both made of a thermal coated tough aluminum construction, keeping the heat out and being durable against anything else it may see. Now on top of the airbox, this does have a plexiglass clear inspection window, again allowing you to keep an eye on your filter, and it adds to that high performance look underneath the hood in my opinion. Now the filter is made of an oiled cotton gauze media which filters out all the micro contaminants that you don't want getting into your engine and allows all of the clean air through, and is a little bit of a higher flow filter compared to other dry or stock options. The kit also comes with silicone couplers and all of the hardware that is needed, including the clamps, fittings, and even a new PCV tube that has a plug-and-play factory-style construction. So this is a completely bolt-on design that does not require a tune and is fairly simple to install. This intake is around $450, which is pretty average for a higher performance choice. Now comparing this to other options in the category, this brings a little bit more to the table than some other simple or budget-friendly choices if you want to invest in an intake that has a little bit more protection with a closed box design and can be maintained with the oiled nature of the filter here. It also has that clear sight window up top as a big bonus here and isn't as bright compared to some polished or even painted options. So if those are some of the key features that you're searching for in a cold air intake, this is a great kit to consider. Now install here is a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, and as I said, it is a pretty straightforward construction, so if you do have a little bit of mechanical experience, it should only take you about an hour or so to get the job done with some fairly basic hand tools. Now at this point we can head over to the shop. One of our installers here is going to show you a detailed breakdown on how you can install this on your Silverado at home. So that is going to wrap it up for my review. Let's go ahead and get into the install.
Tools required for this install include a ratchet, clip remover tool, T15 Torx wrench, 3mm Allen wrench, an extension, a T20 Torx socket, an 8 and 10mm socket. What's up guys? Today we're installing an intake on our Silverado. First we're going to watch a quick uninstall video showing you how to remove your factory intake, and then I'll meet you right back here for the install.
Getting started, we need to obviously pop our hood here on our Silverado, and then first step is to unplug your mass airflow sensor. You're going to want to pull back on this red clip and then release the plug. So again, slide the red portion back. At that point, you can release the clip. Next up, we're going to work on removing the intake tube portion of the factory intake. Getting started, we can loosen up our clamp here at the airbox connection. Either use a flathead screwdriver for this or an 8mm socket. Next up, we're going to loosen up the clamp here at the throttle body connection, again using a flathead screwdriver or an 8mm socket. With our two clamps loosened up, we're about ready to pull out the intake tube portion, but before we do, we have to go ahead and remove our PCV hose on the back here, push in on the gray clip, and pull back. At this point now, we can go ahead and remove our intake tube from the engine bay, releasing it from the throttle body, and then from the airbox. Next up, we need to remove the upper radiator valance here. There are 10 plastic clips holding this in place, so grab a trim removal tool, flathead screwdriver, whatever you have laying around. You're going to want to pop the top off this clip and then remove the clip itself. Now before we go ahead and remove our upper radiator valance, we do need to remove the hood latch release. To do so, you need a T15 Torx tool. With that removed, you can slide it off. With the latch out of the way, now you can remove your valance. The reason you removed your upper radiator valance is to gain access to this clip right here. Basically, you need to pop this guy out. With that clip removed, that'll allow you to pull back the snorkel just enough to get out of that stock airbox. Now we can go ahead and remove this 10mm nut down here, and that will be our first step in removing our stock airbox. Next up, we need to remove this wiring harness and clip from the airbox itself. It's actually attached to a bracket there. To do so, you could either use a small pick tool, flathead screwdriver to release the clip back here and then pull up. At this point, our stock airbox is ready to come out. Couple little tips here. You're gonna wanna push this out of the way, just kind of secure it underneath one of your hoses. And then also, there are two rubber grommets on the back side of the airbox. You don't wanna lose those.
So now with our factory intake removed, we're going to grab our airbox. We need to remove our mass airflow sensor as well as a few bolts that are holding the top cover on, because we are going to be using this bottom portion of our intake box. So I've got a T20 Torx socket for the 2 screws holding in our MAF sensor and an 8mm socket for the 3 screws. So take your T20 Torx socket and remove your 2 screws. And then slide your mass airflow sensor out. Be careful with this, it is pretty fragile. And then we've got 3 of these screws around our intake box, and then we can take this lid off. Take your 8mm socket, we'll get the first one. And then there's one on the next side. And then there's usually also one right here. Ours is missing, so we don't have that. But once you remove that one, you can lift up on this, slide it out of the clip, and remove your filter. So now we're going to reinstall the lower half of our intake box. Make sure you have those 2 grommets on. Slide those into place. And now our little bushing on here slipped off, so I'm gonna slide that back on, and then we can reinstall our nut. And now you can thread your nut on to that stud and take a 10mm socket, tighten it down. Now we're gonna install our air filter and the cover onto our intake box. Now the flat side is gonna be facing up. So we're gonna grab our intake box and put our filter through that grommet. And then we can lay that on top of our intake box. And then we're gonna be reinstalling all of those bolts into the factory holes. So now we're gonna thread in those screws. Now there's gonna be one on the back side here, but remember we only had 2 of our screws. So we'll thread those in and then take an 8mm socket and tighten those down. And then there's also that one right back here that we're missing. Once you have that done, you can reinstall your clips. We have that smaller one down here that will press into place. And then this part is gonna slide onto this notch here. So now we're just gonna assemble our intake tube before we throw this in the truck. So we need to throw our mass airflow sensor into this slot. We have 2 screws that are gonna be going in it that come with the kit that are replacing those Torx screws. And then we'll throw this elbow coupler on and also connect our PCV line. So we'll slide this in first, having the connector pointing towards the bend. And then you can take a 3mm Allen wrench to thread in these screws. And then just tighten those down evenly. And then we're gonna get our coupler. We have one side that's slightly bigger than the other. The bigger sides go into this pipe. Just go ahead and slide that on. We're gonna leave it loose for now. And then we'll grab our PCV line. The side that's coming out straight is gonna go towards the engine. The side with this bend is gonna connect to our fitting here. So slide that on and push it until you hear that click. And now we can get this onto the truck. Now before we throw our intake tube in, we are gonna have to fully remove this PCV line here. Now the tab that you need to press in is on the back here. So I'm gonna press that in and lift up, pop that off. And now we can slide our intake tube into place. I'm going to slide it into our air filter first. And then slide that down to connect to the throttle body. And then you can connect that PCV line. Once again, just push in until you hear the click. There's that click. And now we'll go back, plug in our sensor and tighten everything down. So now we can go ahead and plug in our mass airflow sensor. Press that in until you hear the click, and then press that red locking tab down into place. And now we just need to take an 8mm socket and tighten down these 3 clamps. So now we can grab our intake duct and reinstall our push clip. And then we'll grab our radiator cover and all of those push clips. Now we'll drop that into place and reinstall all of our clips, and then we can reinstall our hood latch. And now we'll take our hood prop handle, slide that on, and take a T15 Torx wrench to thread in those 2 screws. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Cold Air Inductions Cold Air Intake in textured black for your 2019 and newer 5.3 liter Silverado 1500. Thank you for watching, and for all things Silverado, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.